let's go to the templates and fix it in the, sorry, not in here, but in air pollution welcome. Okay, so let me just make a bit more space for us here. Right, so this is what we built before. I think we're gonna tap into this before we continue with the next chart. I suppose we can change this to look a bit better. We can just create a function called render chart of canvas, and let's say we're gonna change the chart type, canvas name, and so on. So then instead of putting here hard-coded bar, I'm gonna just change that to chart type, and then the rest stays the same. I know this will change a little bit, scales here. We're gonna change that a bit depending on the bar or line type, but then the rest is pretty much the same. So to keep the code dry, I'm gonna make it a function that is accepting the chart type, and then we can do something like if chart type equals to bar, then, oh, sorry, I'm writing in Python / JavaScript now. Okay, do something, and I need to initialize let scales be an empty object, and then if it's bar, then we want this to be this. So scales equals whatever we had before. Let's make it a bit shorter. Here, option command L. Oh, it made it longer. Anyway, so, and then else, if chart type is line, then scales will be something. And let me see what it was. Let me go here and check what they said. Scales is this. So I'm gonna just try to copy it. Can I copy it? Let me just double click. Yeah. And I'm gonna copy scales from here. I can see it ends here. Ah, come on. Be nice. Okay, scales. So I want to copy here up to here. Yeah, that's the same line. Copy. Go back to our code. Paste it here. I can click here to see if it's in the right place. It's closing the object nicely, so that's what we need. And then all we have to change here is take this out and put scales here. Okay, so depending on the chart type, it's gonna determine if scales is this or that, and yeah, so that's for scales. Okay, if it's bar, then it's this, and if it's line, then it's this. Okay, so now we need to change only this. Render chart and tell the guy that it's a bar chart, and the rest stays the same. But then we want to add some more code in here. So for the next chart, I suppose, you see, if we take this and copy and paste it here and just change this to 2, and then change, well, it's not going to go through the entries anymore because the structure of the object that we are passing back is different. So what we do is we really, instead of using chart name, we have it actually in data. So we get this data here. So instead of D, we use data, and this will be data.name because we put that name in there. Then we have the canvas, that's going to be line, and we append, blah, blah, blah. That seems to be fine. So if I save this, I'm pretty sure we're going to see something on our page. So let's go to air pollution. And it's loading, and here it is. So that's our chart. Yes, if I go to Albania and Denmark and Ireland, we can see that the threshold here for what is it, PM10, I think that's the default that I went with. So for now we are looking at PM10 data, and in a second we'll have a bit more control over it, but for now we can see that it's a pretty interesting view where you can compare different countries, and you can compare them also to the limit. For now, we're looking at the maximum pollution levels, and also we're looking at PM10. But in a second, we'll be able to manipulate what kind of data we're looking at. Okay, so let's go back to the code. So I want to make it a function. I want that to be responsive to what type and pollutant I'm looking for. So let's go here and make it a function. So let's say load chart2 be a function of summary type and pollutant. And inside of it, I'm going to put this. Okay, Option Command L. And in here, what I want to do is I want to be able to pass that as an argument. So here we have our URL that we are asking for the data, just like we did in here. So if I go back, you see this is the URL, air pollution visual data 2, and then I want to add that to be dynamic. So let's put a question mark here, and then pollutant or summary type to be $ and braces, and I'm going to put summary type that comes from the arguments of our function, and then and pollutant is, and again $ and the curly braces, pollutants. Okay, so that's going to generate our URL that it's going to ask for the data, and then at the end it's gonna do its magic. Okay. And so before we were appending this new canvas, this new chart basically to visuals container. So if we go to HTML and look for visuals container here, we just append it to it. But now I have a new idea. I'm going to put some HTML here in a second where I prepare place for my new chart. But then next to it, there's going to be some controls. I'm going to put some selectors there where we can change the pollutant and the summary type. So, and I'm going to call it, say, chart 2. Okay. So let's call it chart 2, and then instead of append to chart 2, I want to replace its HTML. So if you put in jQuery HTML like this, so I select some element, I select some element here, and then .html, that means, hey, replace the inner HTML of this element. So let's say if I grabbed, say, something by the ID visuals container, then I'm replacing whatever is inside here. Okay, if I had ABC and I say, hey, now it's going to be HTML DEF, then I'm going to put DEF in there. But I'm going to put something a bit more complicated than just some text. Okay, so wait a second. I changed the wrong code. It should be here. So that stays. So visual 1 is being just appended to visuals container. In here, I want to do that to be chart 2. And then this is append, and this is going to be HTML. Okay, so first thing will be that we are going to actually just load it first. Whenever the page is being loaded for the first time, we need to call this function, because for now it's just a function. In here is just a couple of lines of code that will be executed every time you load the page. In here, we just store a certain function into load chart 2. And so if we want to see it for the first time, we need to call it as well. Okay, so I want to, by default, call it by the max and the PM10 as the defaults. Okay, so that's going to make sure that we load something at the beginning, but then we can change it. And I'm going to have those two selectors with ID chart2 summary type and chart2 pollutant, where we control what information is being displayed. So to do that, I'm going to grab those guys. So by jQuery, grab by ID, and I'm going to call them chart2 summary type. And you can put comma in here because both of them should work the same. Chart2 dash pollutant. So these will be my two selectors that I'm going to create just in a second. And I want them to act like this. On change, I want them to do this function that accepts nothing and just do this. Let summary type be, and I'm going to grab them. I'm going to ask them for their values. So let's just grab by ID, and I'm grabbing this ID here. So let's copy this, paste it here. And I want to get its value. So just val like this. And then let pollutant be, and again, the same code I'm grabbing by ID chart pollutant, chart2 pollutant. Okay, boom, dot value. And using this, I want to load chart2 summary type and pollutant. Okay, so just like in here, we called something with max and PM10. In here, we dynamically change it whenever we change one of the selectors. And all we have to do now is we have to create the HTML that will get those selectors working. So, and allow, also we still don't have chart 2. So we need to make sure that this structure for this new way of displaying our chart is ready. For now, we were just appending to this ID. Now I want to build something a bit more capable. So let's go here and let's do div. That's going to be class row. And in here we have div class. Let's make it column 12 if it's small, and if it's medium, it's going to be column 6. Okay. And in here we do selector. So select class for Bootstrap formatting, class form dash control. And inside of that select, we're going to put some options with value max. Value, and then command D, min, avg, minimum, average. So these are the labels and these are the values that we're going to pass to the URL. Okay, and obviously we need some ID for this guy. So ID is the ID that I used there for the summary type controller. This one here. Copy this. Just don't want to make a typo, so I copy. Control V. And now I can copy this because it's going to be very similar to this. Then this is the pollutant. And instead of doing this, there's one more thing I need to do because we didn't do that yet. So because I want to go through some context for pollutant in pollutant list, and we need to put that as a context in pollutant list, and then and4. Okay, and in here this is going to be pollutant dot double curly braces pollutant dot name, and the same here, pollutant dot name. Okay, and the last bit, so we have this this row of 2 selectors, and then underneath them I want to have this div where the canvas go. So ID is chart2, and that chart2 is corresponding to this here. So we're replacing whatever HTML inside of it is with this new canvas, and we then render our new chart in that canvas. Okay, so one last bit I forgot to add it before is adding this context. So maybe let's put that context outside. So I'm going to just copy this outside because this is repetitive, and so will be pollutant list. And we want that to be a list of pollutant name for p in pollutant.objects.all. Okay. And so in here, we do nothing really. If we have this context, we just do pass. Thank you very much. If it's post, and I do that, we could just do if post, then do something that is redundant. But sometimes it's nice to put the code that is ready for maybe adding something in here, or just say, hey, if it's get, then nothing happens. It also tells you something. But anyway, so in here, we need to change this. Instead of creating context, we just add message success to it. So in here, we add message success, and we add that in there. So copy, paste, and delete this. Okay, and then this context is being passed here. So, and we always get this app name and pollutant list in here. Okay, let's refresh and see how it works. So let's take this from here and go to air pollution. And I can see it's still loading. So data tables are being loaded. Okay, that's loaded. I can see this is loaded as well. And we also have our selectors. I can see I messed something up with the pollutants here because they don't seem to be working as they should. So let's go and see what I did. I think because I can see that there are some pollutants here, Something is kind of in here, but kind of doesn't show anything. So let's see what I messed up there. Let's go back to HTML part and see, okay, pollutant. So for pollutant, in pollutant list, give me a pollutant name and pollutant name. Okay, so I'm going through pollutant in pollutant list. Okay, these are names already. So you go and refresh, and that should be working now. Yeah, okay, now it's working. So now we're looking at some data for maximum values and PM10. So if I look at my Poland and my Ireland, I can compare that. Okay, it seems that Ireland is doing way better with PM10, and let's see Cyprus in here. PM10 in Cyprus is a bit higher than the limit. But what about the average for PM10? It's loaded again, so it didn't refresh the whole page. It gave me the average for PM10, and now I can select my Ireland, my Poland, my Cyprus, and see, okay, for average, it kind of, okay, it's not so bad for Cyprus. Poland is still too high, and Ireland is doing very well. What about SO2? SO2 is pretty uneventful as far as I know. It's all very safe. So yeah, we can see the limit is here, and the averages are pretty low. What about the maximums? Is any of the countries above countries that I'm interested in? So Ireland, Poland, let's see Greece, and I'm looking at everything below. So, and I'm looking also at some data that is missing. 2016 doesn't have data, but that's fine. It still tells us something in here. So guys, I think this is pretty cool. We gave it a little bit more functionality than it had before as just charts.js. So now we're looking at something where you can control what kind of data is being fetched, and you can fetch it on the go, so you don't need to refresh your whole page, and you can get some information from the backend and put it in only in the place where you want it to be put. And so yeah, that's AJAX for you. I think also from the perspective of like the code, it's pretty cool because I didn't have to figure out where to put my data in. Like we have one aggregation for the table data, and then we have one aggregation for the data visual 1, and then we have visual 2. So all those calls are being handled separately, and also our code is way better structured. Okay guys, I am very happy about the progress that we're making. This is pretty cool. I was thinking of changing this template because it's pretty silly for the cool and serious work that we're doing. And so, but maybe when we move to React, that's when we can change it. So for now, let's stick to it. But what we can do is we can look into working with Django a little bit in depth. So for now, we were using only the function-based views. That's going to change in the next tutorial, where we're going to dive into class-based views and just see what we can get for free from Django. But then we can start looking at Django REST framework and REST API, and then finally go towards React. Okay, cool. So thanks for watching. I'm super excited, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.